A small village surrounded by dry fields and dusty roads, there lived a poor farmer named Ravi. He was a kind and hard-working man, but life had never been easy for him. Every morning before sunrise, Ravi would wake up, take his old farming tools, and walk to his small piece of land. The problem was that his land was dry, and no matter how hard he worked, very little grew there. Some days he barely had enough food to eat. His tiny house had cracks in the walls, and during rain-smiley nights, water leaked through the roof. Even though life was difficult, Ravi never stopped helping others. If an old neighbor needed help carrying water, Ravi helped. If someone had no food, Ravi shared the little rice he had. The villagers often wondered how someone with so little could still be so kind. One cold evening, after working all day, Ravi sat near an old tree beside the road. He looked up at the sky and quietly said, "I don't ask for riches. I only wish for enough to live peacefully and help my family." At that very moment, a strange wind began to blow. The leaves around him started moving, even though the night was calm. Suddenly, a bright light appeared near the tree. Ravi stood up in fear. Out of the glowing light stepped an old man wearing a long silver robe. His beard was white, and his eyes sparkled like stars. "Who are you?" Ravi asked nervously. The old man smiled. "I am a traveler," he said softly, "but not an ordinary one." The man raised his hand, and glowing sparks danced in the air. Ravi stepped back in shock. "You? You are a magician?" The old man nodded. "Yes, I have traveled across many lands. I have seen rich people with greedy hearts and poor people filled with kindness. Tonight, I watched you help others, even when you had almost nothing." Ravi lowered his head. "I only do what feels right," he replied. The magician smiled again. "That is exactly why I am here." The old magician waved his hand, and suddenly, 3 glowing stones appeared in front of Ravi. "These are magical gifts," the magician explained. "But remember, magic is powerful, and power can change people. Use it wisely." Ravi listened carefully. "The first stone gives you the power to grow crops quickly. The second stone allows you to heal sick animals and plants. And the third stone," the magician paused, "can turn one simple thing into something valuable, but only once each day." Ravi's eyes widened in surprise. "Why are you giving these to me?" he asked. "Because kindness deserves a chance," the magician answered. Then he disappeared into the night like smoke in the wind. The next morning, Ravi walked to his field holding the first magical stone. He whispered a small prayer and touched the dry soil. Suddenly, the ground began to glow. Within minutes, green plants started rising from the earth. Fresh vegetables, rice, and fruits grew everywhere. Ravi couldn't believe his eyes. Soon he began using the second stone to heal weak animals in the village. Sick cows recovered, dying plants turned green again, and farmers came to him asking for help. But Ravi never charged money from poor people. As time passed, the village slowly changed. Hunger disappeared. Fields became green again. Families smiled more. People started calling Ravi the farmer of miracles. One day, a greedy businessman from a nearby town heard about Ravi's magical success. He arrived with expensive clothes and a proud smile. "I know your secret," the man said. "Sell your magic to me. I will make you rich." Ravi shook his head. This magic was given to help people, not to become greedy. The businessman became angry. "If you don't give it to me," he shouted, "I'll take it myself." That night, the greedy man secretly entered Ravi's house and stole the magical stones. Excited, he rushed home and tried using the first stone. "Grow gold!" he shouted. But nothing happened. Then suddenly, dark clouds filled the sky. A powerful voice echoed around him. "Magic without kindness brings nothing." The stones turned into ordinary rocks. Frightened, the greedy man ran back and returned them to Ravi the next day. "I'm sorry," he said with shame. Ravi looked at him quietly. "Everyone deserves another chance," Ravi replied. Instead of punishing him, Ravi forgave the man and even offered him food. Years passed, and Ravi became respected across many villages. But he remained humble. He still lived simply, still helped others, and still remembered the magician's words. One evening, while walking near the same old tree, Ravi saw the glowing light once again. The magician appeared with a smile. "You have done well," he said. You used power with kindness. That is rarer than magic itself. Ravi smiled. You changed my life, he said. The magician shook his head gently. No, Ravi. Your kindness changed your life. I only gave you a chance. And with that, the magician disappeared forever. From that day onward, villagers told the story of the poor farmer whose kindness became stronger than magic. After many peaceful years, Ravi's village had become one of the happiest places in the region. The fields were green, children laughed freely, and no family slept hungry anymore. But one day, strange news arrived. A traveler from a distant village came running to Ravi. Please help us, the traveler cried. A terrible drought has destroyed our farms. Our animals are dying, and people have no food. Ravi felt sad after hearing this. Without wasting time, he packed some food and carried the magical stones with him. I cannot ignore people in need, Ravi said. He began his journey to the distant village. After many hours of walking, Ravi finally arrived. The village looked worse than he imagined. The ground was cracked. Trees had dried up. Children looked weak, and worried villagers sat outside their broken homes. A village elder approached Ravi. Can you really help us? He asked with hope. Ravi smiled kindly. I will do my best. That night, Ravi walked through the empty fields holding the first magical stone. He touched the dry earth and whispered a prayer. Slowly, the ground began glowing. Green plants started growing again. Water slowly returned to the wells. The villagers woke up the next morning and could not believe their eyes. It's a miracle, they shouted happily. Soon, Ravi used the second magical stone to heal weak animals and dying plants. The village slowly came back to life. But not everyone was happy. Far away in the mountains lived a jealous, dark sorcerer named Zoran. He heard people talking about Ravi. A farmer helping villages with magical power? Zoran laughed coldly. That power should belong to me. One stormy night, Zoran secretly came to the village. He stood outside Ravi's house and whispered dark words into the wind. Suddenly, black clouds covered the sky. Strong winds destroyed crops. Animals became sick again. Fear spread across the village. The villagers ran to Ravi. Please save us, they begged. Ravi looked at the dark sky and realized something evil had arrived. That night, Ravi stood alone in the field holding the magical stones. Suddenly, a dark shadow appeared. It was Zoran. Give me your magic, Zoran demanded, or your village will suffer forever. Ravi stood firm. This power was never meant for greed, he said bravely. Zoran laughed. Then let us see who is stronger. Dark energy filled the sky. Ravi held the glowing stones tightly as a bright light surrounded him. The battle between kindness and greed had finally begun. Dark clouds filled the sky as lightning flashed across the fields. Ravi stood firmly in the middle of the storm, holding the three glowing magical stones tightly in his hands. Across from him stood Zoran, the dark sorcerer, surrounded by black smoke and evil energy. The villagers watched from far away, frightened and helpless. Give me the stones, Zoran shouted angrily. You are only a farmer. You do not deserve such power. Ravi stayed calm. This magic was given to help people, Ravi replied. I will never use it for greed. Zoran raised his hand. Suddenly, powerful dark energy shot toward Ravi like a storm. Ravi quickly lifted the glowing stones. A bright golden shield appeared around him. The two magical forces crashed together, shaking the ground beneath them. The villagers gasped in fear. The wind grew stronger. Trees bent from the force of the battle. Zoran laughed loudly. You cannot stop me forever, he shouted. He lifted both hands into the sky. Dark clouds became thicker. Heavy rain began falling. Suddenly, giant shadows appeared from the darkness. The villagers screamed. Strange shadow creatures slowly moved across the fields. Fear spread everywhere. Children cried and families ran for safety. Ravi looked around sadly. He knew he had to protect everyone. He held the second magical stone tightly. A warm golden light spread across the village. The weak animals slowly became healthy again. The frightened villagers felt calm. The dark shadow stepped backward. Zoran looked shocked. How is this possible? He shouted. Ravi looked directly at him. Kindness is stronger than fear, Ravi said. Angry and desperate, Zoran raised a giant storm around Ravi. Lightning struck the ground. Dust covered the sky. Ravi almost fell. For a moment, doubt entered his heart. What if I fail? He whispered quietly. Suddenly, a familiar voice echoed through the wind. You are stronger than you think. Ravi looked up. Standing near the old tree was the wise magician who had first given him the stones. The old magician smiled calmly. Magic is not your true power, he said. Your heart is. Ravi felt courage return. He stood up stronger than before. Holding all three stones together, Ravi closed his eyes. Instead of attacking with anger, he spoke softly. I do not fight to destroy, Ravi said. I fight to protect. The stones began glowing brighter than ever before. Golden light spread across the sky like the sunrise. The darkness slowly began disappearing. Zoran stepped backward in fear. No, he shouted. My power cannot lose. But the golden light surrounded him. Suddenly, Zoran saw something strange. He saw memories from his childhood. He remembered being a lonely young boy who had once wanted to help people. But years of anger and loneliness had turned him cold. Tears slowly filled Zoran's eyes. The storm stopped. The dark clouds disappeared. For the first time in many years, silence filled the sky. Zoran dropped to his knees. I forgot who I used to be, he said quietly. The villagers watched in surprise. Ravi slowly walked toward him. He could have punished Zoran. He could have taken revenge. But Ravi simply held out his hand. You can still change, Ravi said kindly. Zoran looked up with disbelief. After everything I did, you forgive me? Ravi nodded. Everyone deserves another chance. Slowly, Zoran accepted Ravi's hand. The villagers began smiling. Peace returned to the village once again. Over the following weeks, Zoran stayed in the village. Instead of using dark magic, he helped rebuild homes and farms. Little by little, people stopped fearing him. One evening, the old magician returned. You have done something even greater, he told Ravi proudly. You did not defeat darkness with power. You defeated it with kindness. The magician smiled. The greatest magic in this world is a good heart. Ravi looked at the peaceful village around him. Children laughed. Animals wandered safely. Families smiled once again. And deep inside, Ravi understood something important. True power was never about magic. True power came from kindness, courage, and helping others. From that day onward, Ravi became known not only as the farmer of miracles, but also as the protector of hope. To be continued. Months passed after the great battle. Peace had returned to Ravi's village. The farms were greener than ever before. Children played happily in the fields. Animals were healthy, and people no longer feared hunger. Even Zoran had changed. The once feared dark sorcerer now spent his days helping farmers rebuild broken homes and teaching children how to plant trees. Many villagers still found it hard to trust him, but Ravi always said, people can change when someone believes in them. One quiet evening, Ravi was sitting under the old tree where everything had first begun. The sunset painted the sky orange and gold. Suddenly, the magical stones began glowing brightly. Ravi stood up in surprise. This had never happened before. Then a strange voice echoed through the wind. Help us! Ravi looked around, but no one was there. Again the voice whispered, Please save our kingdom. Suddenly a beam of golden light shot into the sky. The magical stones floated into the air. Before Ravi could react, a shining doorway appeared in front of him. Zoran arrived quickly. What is happening? He asked nervously. Ravi looked serious. I think someone needs help. Without fear, Ravi stepped into the glowing portal. Zoran hesitated for a moment, then followed him. In seconds, everything changed. They arrived in a strange, magical land. Huge mountains touched the clouds. Rivers glowed like silver. Trees sparkled under the moonlight. But something felt wrong. The sky was dark. The villages were broken. Fear covered the faces of the people. A small girl ran toward Ravi. You came, she cried happily. An old king slowly walked forward. His crown looked old and damaged. Our kingdom is dying, the king said sadly. A terrible beast called the Shadow Dragon has stolen the light crystal. Ravi listened carefully. What happens without the crystal? Ravi asked. The king lowered his head. Our land slowly loses life. Crops die, rivers dry, hope disappears. Zoran looked worried. The Shadow Dragon, he whispered. I have heard stories about it. The king pointed toward a giant black mountain. It lives there! Suddenly, the ground shook. A loud roar echoed across the sky. Everyone looked terrified. The shadow dragon had awakened. Huge black wings covered the moonlight. Its glowing red eyes stared across the kingdom. Fear spread everywhere. The villagers ran inside their homes. But Ravi stood still. He remembered the suffering he once faced. He remembered hunger, fear, and hopelessness. I cannot leave these people alone, Ravi said firmly. Zoran looked at him. That dragon is dangerous, he warned. Ravi smiled calmly. So was darkness in your heart once. Zoran looked down quietly. For the first time, he smiled slightly. Then we fight together, he said. The next morning, Ravi packed food and carried the magical stones. Zoran prepared protective magic. The king gave them a map to the mountain. The villagers gathered to watch. Please come back safely, the little girl said. Ravi nodded kindly. We will. The journey was difficult. They crossed dangerous forests, walked across broken bridges, climbed icy mountains. At night, strange shadows followed them. But Ravi never gave up. Whenever Zoran felt fear, Ravi encouraged him. Whenever Ravi felt tired, Zoran protected him. Slowly, they became true friends. Finally, after many days, they reached the giant black mountain. Smoke covered the sky. Lava flowed between rocks. Then suddenly, a giant roar shook the mountain. The shadow dragon appeared. Its massive black wings spread across the sky. Its glowing red eyes burned like fire. You dare enter my land, the dragon growled. Ravi stepped forward bravely. We only want the light crystal, Ravi said. The dragon laughed loudly. Then you must earn it. The mountain trembled. The greatest challenge had finally begun. To be continued. The giant mountain shook as the shadow dragon spread its enormous wings. Hot wind rushed across the rocks. Its glowing red eyes stared directly at Ravi and Zoran. You want the light crystal? The dragon growled deeply. Then prove your worth. Ravi stepped forward bravely. We do not seek power, Ravi said calmly. We only want to save innocent people. The shadow dragon laughed. Many have come before you, it said. All wanted power for themselves. Suddenly the ground cracked open. 3 glowing doors appeared in front of Ravi and Zoran. The dragon raised its head. To earn the crystal, you must pass 3 trials. Zoran looked nervous. And if we fail? He asked. The dragon's eyes glowed brighter. You will never leave this mountain. The first glowing door slowly opened. The trial of fear. Ravi and Zoran stepped inside. Suddenly, everything turned dark. Strange whispers filled the air. Ravi looked around in confusion. Then suddenly, he saw his village destroyed. The fields were dead. Children were crying. Villagers blamed him. You failed us, they shouted. Ravi's hands shook. Fear entered his heart. This cannot be real, he whispered. Nearby, Zoran faced something even worse. He saw his old self again. Dark shadows surrounded him. You will always be evil, the voices whispered. No one can ever trust you. Zoran dropped to his knees. For a moment, he almost gave up. But Ravi remembered the magician's words. Your heart is your true power. He closed his eyes. This fear is not real, Ravi said firmly. Suddenly, golden light surrounded him. Zoran looked at Ravi. Slowly, he stood up. I am not who I used to be, Zoran said bravely. The darkness shattered like broken glass. The first trial was complete. The dragon's voice echoed. Interesting. The second glowing door opened. The trial of greed. This time, Ravi and Zoran entered a room filled with treasure. Mountains of gold sparkled everywhere. Magic crowns floated in the air. Beautiful palaces appeared around them. A mysterious voice whispered, Take whatever you want. Suddenly, Ravi saw something shocking. A magical throne appeared. If you take this, the voice said, you can become king of every land. Zoran saw even greater power. Dark magic stronger than ever floated before him. You can rule the world, the voice tempted him. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Ravi slowly stepped back. I don't need riches, he said. I only want people to be safe. Zoran looked at the dark power. Years ago, he would have taken it immediately. But now, He remembered Ravi's kindness. He stepped away. I choose a better life, he said quietly. Instantly, the treasure disappeared. The second trial was complete. The dragon watched carefully. For the first time, it looked surprised. The third door slowly opened. The trial of kindness. This trial was different. When Ravi and Zoran entered, they saw a freezing village trapped in snow. Hungry people sat weakly outside broken homes. Children cried from hunger. An old woman collapsed onto the ground. Suddenly, a voice spoke. You may leave now and claim the crystal, but if you stay to help these people, you will lose your chance forever. Zoran looked confused. What should we do? Ravi did not even think twice. He immediately rushed to help. He gave food to children, helped repair broken homes, used his magical stones to heal weak animals. Zoran joined him. Together they worked day and night. Days passed. They forgot about the crystal completely. They only cared about helping people. Then suddenly, everything disappeared. The snowy village vanished. A bright golden light filled the sky. The shadow dragon appeared again. But this time, its eyes were no longer red. They glowed softly like stars. You have passed, the dragon said quietly. Ravi looked confused. The village, he said. It was part of the final test, the dragon explained. Most people choose power, but you chose kindness. The dragon slowly lowered its head. Then from deep inside the mountain, a glowing crystal floated into the air. The light crystal. It shined brighter than sunlight. You have earned it, the dragon said. But remember, the crystal does not belong to one person. It belongs to those who protect hope. Suddenly dark shadows appeared across the mountain. The sky turned black again. The dragon looked worried. No, it whispered. He has found us. Ravi looked confused. Who? A deep voice echoed through the mountain. You may have defeated fear, but you cannot defeat me. A giant dark figure slowly appeared from the shadows. Even the shadow dragon looked afraid. The Dark King has awakened. To be continued. The mountain trembled violently. Dark clouds covered the sky. A cold wind swept across the land as the giant shadow slowly stepped forward. Ravi held the glowing light crystal tightly. Beside him, Zoran stood frozen in fear. Even the mighty shadow dragon lowered its head. The Dark King, the dragon whispered nervously. The giant figure finally emerged from the darkness. He was taller than any man Ravi had ever seen. He wore black armor covered in strange glowing symbols. His eyes burned like red fire. Dark smoke surrounded him like living shadows. The mountain shook with every step he took. The Dark King laughed deeply. So, he said coldly, someone has finally taken the light crystal. Ravi stepped forward bravely. We only want to save innocent people, Ravi replied. The Dark King smiled darkly. Innocent? He laughed. There are no innocent people. Only weak people. Zoran clenched his fists. You spread fear everywhere, he said angrily. The Dark King looked at him. Oh, I know you, he said with a cruel smile. Zoran, the failed sorcerer. Zoran looked down for a moment. The words hurt him deeply. You once wanted power, the Dark King whispered. You could still join me. Dark energy slowly surrounded Zoran. You were never accepted, the king continued. People feared you. They never truly trusted you. For a moment, Zoran stood silent. Doubt returned to his eyes. The shadows around him grew darker. Ravi noticed immediately. He placed a hand on Zoran's shoulder. You are not alone anymore, Ravi said calmly. You changed. You chose kindness. Zoran looked at Ravi. For the first time in years, he truly believed it. He stepped away from the darkness. No, Zoran said firmly. I choose my own path. The Dark King's smile disappeared. Then you will fall with him. Suddenly, the king raised both hands. Dark lightning exploded across the mountain. Massive shadow creatures appeared from the rocks. The shadow dragon roared loudly. Get behind me, it shouted. A giant battle began. The dragon fought the shadow monsters in the sky. Zoran used protective magic to shield Ravi, but the Dark King was too powerful. Every attack only made him stronger. Ravi fell to the ground. The light crystal flickered weakly. Fear entered Ravi's heart. "What if I lose?" he whispered. Suddenly, the magical stones in Ravi's pocket began glowing. A familiar golden light appeared. The old magician stepped forward from the wind. Ravi's eyes widened. "You came back," the magician smiled gently. "You have already learned the greatest lesson," he said. "This battle is not about strength. It is about belief." The magician pointed toward the crystal. "The light crystal grows stronger through hope." Ravi slowly stood up. He looked around. The dragon was injured. Zoran was struggling. Fear filled the mountain. Then Ravi understood. He closed his eyes. Instead of fighting with anger, he remembered every person he had helped. The hungry villagers, the smiling children, the people who believed in him. Slowly, the light crystal began shining brighter. Golden light spread across the mountain. The villagers in the magical kingdom looked toward the sky. Suddenly, something incredible happened. Their hope gave power to the crystal. The light became stronger and stronger. The Dark King stepped backward. "What is this?" he shouted angrily. Ravi opened his eyes. "This," Ravi said calmly, "is hope." He raised the crystal high. A wave of golden light exploded across the mountain. Dark clouds shattered. Shadow creatures disappeared. The Dark King screamed in anger. "No! Impossible!" But the light surrounded him completely. For the first time, fear entered the Dark King's eyes. The darkness around him slowly disappeared. His black armor cracked. His power weakened. Finally, he fell to his knees. The mountain became silent. The storm ended. Sunlight slowly broke through the clouds. The shadow dragon landed beside Ravi. "You did it," it said proudly. But Ravi simply smiled. "We all did it together." Zoran looked at Ravi and laughed softly. "You really are impossible to defeat." Suddenly, the sky glowed brightly. The magical kingdom slowly returned to life. Trees became green again. Rivers sparkled. People cheered happily. The king walked forward with tears in his eyes. "You saved us," he said. Ravi shook his head gently.